Good morning, everybody. My name is Cortland Miller. I'm the Director of Partnerships with the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library Foundation. Next, we have the story at the heart of everything around you. In 1883, a young New Yorker came west to hunt in the Dakota Badlands. Months later, tragedy struck back home. He lost his wife and mother on the very same day, and he returned to this hard, beautiful country to rebuild himself. He ranched, he struggled, he endured, and he left convinced that he never would have become president had it not been for his time in North Dakota. This conversation gathers the leaders who have since guided the state that shaped Roosevelt. They'll what North forged in Roosevelt and what it still offers the country today. Moderating is North Dakota Governor Kelly Armstrong, joined by 4 former governors of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, Jack Dalrymple, John Hoeven, and Ed Schafer. Please join me in welcoming the governors.
Greetings, everyone, and thank you for being here. Before I introduce the panelists really quick and turn it over to each and every one of them, I would just take a moment to say, I think being the governor in North Dakota is the coolest job in all of politics. And for one brief moment of personal privilege, I can tell you it's not always easy. But it is significantly easier when you get to follow 4 legends who did a fantastic job. And really changed the trajectory of this state in a positive way. Sitting to my left is Secretary Doug Burgum. After a successful career in the private sector that landed Microsoft's second largest U.S. campus in Fargo, North Dakota, Doug Burgum served 8 years as governor from 2016 to 2024. President Trump nominated him to be the 55th Secretary of the Interior in November of 2024, and he was confirmed and officially sworn in on February 1st, 2025. Next is Jack Dalrymple. Jack was named Outstanding Young Farmer of the USA in 1983 and helped found the North Dakota Growers Pasta Company. He served 8 terms in the state legislature, including 6 as House Appropriations Chairman, before being elected lieutenant governor on the ticket with John Hoeven in 2000. Jack served 6 years as governor from 2010 to 2016. John Hoeven. For more than 3 decades, starting with his time as the president and CEO of the Bank of North Dakota, John Hoeven has been working on behalf of the people of our state. He currently serves as North Dakota's 22nd U.S. Senator, a position he has held since 2011, following his 10 years of service as the state governor. And last but definitely not least, Ed Schafer. Ed served 8 years as governor from 1992 to 2000 and is the first and only North Dakotan to serve as the U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. Prior to running for office, he worked in the private sector for Gold Seal, the North Dakota-based manufacturing firm founded by his father, Harold Schafer, serving as company president from 1978 to 1985. And I got his desk in my office. Here's a fun fact. This is not the most governors that have ever been on stage together. 25 years ago, 2 of them were at this event. 25 years ago, 6 governors took the stage together in Bismarck, North Dakota for a panel discussion to mark the 20th anniversary of the North Dakota Heritage Center. So we can say for sure that this is the most governors that have ever been on the stage at the same time in Medora. I told you guys in the green room we really want this to be a conversation. I hope I'll ask the questions, but really I'm really excited to hear you guys riff with each other because this is just really for everybody in this room and especially for me, just a real honor to be up here with each and every one of you. But the question one is, Theodore Roosevelt arrived in Medora, a grieving, asthmatic New York assemblyman, and left a different man. Every one of you has stood on this ground and seen this country in every season. Governor Burgum, let's start with you. What does Western North Dakota do to a person? What did it do to you that no other place can?
Well, thank you, Kelly. Certainly got a story to tell there, but I do want to say I had an experience like you years ago. There was an event where these three governors were there. Jack had just been elected. I was in the private sector and got invited to attend, and Alan Olson was there, so there was 4 governors, and I was asked to be MC, and I was looking around the room, and I said, there was things going on nationally and in other states. I said, well, wow, North Dakota's an amazing place. Look, we got these 4 amazing leaders. We're all here together. I said, if we were in Illinois and we had 4 governors all in one place, we'd be meeting at a prison.
I'd have probably been their lawyer.
That was funny because it was actually true, given what was going on there right now. But it's an honor to be here with these folks. And of course, I look down the line and what Kelly said, absolutely. I got a chance, like Kelly, we're standing on the shoulders of the great performances here. And a special nod to Ed Schafer, because he was the first guy that broke through as a Republican governor. When he got elected, there weren't any. And now, I could have, if you have this panel 100 years from now, it might be 100 years of Republicans based on what got started. But way to go, Ed. Let's give it up for Ed. Thank you. But Western North Dakota, it's you're growing up in the eastern part of the state, but I was fortunate both my parents were hunters, my mom and my dad, but it was largely bird hunting. They both pheasant hunted, duck hunted. We had, dogs, golden retrievers growing up. So I grew up in a hunting family and from a very young age. But then my dad, who had been served in World War II, came down with a terminal illness, passed away after a long battle for a couple years when I was a freshman in high school. And I didn't really have a mentor to say, hey, like pick up the baton and let's go, learn about hunting. But I had an older cousin who had kids about my age. He invited me to go deer hunting out in the Badlands. We stayed at a ranch down in Marmarth, and my first time out here then was I was a sophomore in high school, and that was transformational for me. I mean, we'd been through the park when I was in single digits because my grandparents lived in Helen, I had cousins in Billings, and so I'd seen the park. But to actually get on the ground and hunt was something, and that was a love affair that never ended. And I've been, hunting in the Badlands basically every year of my life, all the way up through. I don't post about it when you're in this position, but it was. I did, and often when I was governor, I didn't either. But I did end up getting out here for a couple days last December, and was, knocked down a nice mule deer at the last day of the season last year, about 30 miles south of here, and that was fun. Then I had to come up here and check on what was going on over here, and then some of the guys on the construction team were like, Who's this dude wearing camo that's walking through here like like whatever the whole thing. So they're like, I was squeezing in. It was a dual day. I got to shoot a nice mule deer, and I got to come here and watch the progress on the library that last December.
That sounds like my favorite day in Western North Dakota. So it sounds perfect. You've each served as governor as one of the most independent-minded states in the country. Governor Hoeven, from your different times in office, what is the part of governing North Dakota that an outsider gets most wrong, and what do you miss most about the job?
I don't know. I don't know if outsiders get it wrong, but I think they maybe don't realize the full extent of it. But North Dakota is an incredible ag powerhouse, and I wore a tie in honor of that today. For all our great farmers and ranchers, right? But we're also an energy powerhouse, and when you tell them that we produce 1.1 million barrels of oil a day, they kind of are agog at that and don't realize that's more than some OPEC countries. They're all excited about Venezuela right now, and Venezuela is producing, less than 300,000. And so I think that's one of the things. People don't realize the impact that North Dakota has on this nation. 40 different major crops were either number one or, one of the top producing states in the country in terms of agriculture and ag diversity. And we're just building on that, and it keeps growing and going, and we're leading the world really in agriculture. And now the same thing in energy. I think we provide electricity to about 10 or 12 different states, and think how important that is now with all the data centers, AI, and everything else. Look at this place. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt wouldn't be talking to President Trump without all that electricity to power the AI, and a lot of it's provided right here in North Dakota, and oil and gas. And starting certainly with Governor Schafer and myself and all these governors, we've worked hard to make North Dakota an energy powerhouse. And the people of this state and the companies of the state have done this. It's really incredible. And just like we're at our 250th birthday, we're the strongest nation in the world. I think in terms of we need to keep our shoulder to the wheel for the next 250 years. And so I talk about things like Crack the Code 2.0 and how we're going to continue to build on those strengths, whether it's ag or energy or anything else. I've always said we can compete with anyone, anywhere, anytime, and do very well.
North Dakota produces food, fuel, and the country's hardest working people. Each of you has led this state through a different chapter of its story. Agriculture, oil, technology, conservation. Governor Dalrymple, what is the next chapter, and what is the version of stewardship North Dakotans should expect from whoever follows?
Okay, that's a pretty complicated question, but let me start with an introduction. I got to tell people that before I became a governor, I was actually a lieutenant governor for quite a long time. So I have this soft spot in my heart for people who don't get recognized. Drew Wrigley, would you stand up? He was my lieutenant governor the entire time.
The actual current lieutenant governor is dead.
And now he's, sunk down to attorney general, but he's just still doing a fantastic job all the way around. And I'm going to exercise my privilege to introduce my family who has come with me. I don't know where they are, but would you all please stand up and say hello, every single one of you. Come on, you have to stand up. First Lady Betsy. Oh, there's some grandchildren back there. I had to do that, Kelly, because I think of this place, Medora, as the place where people come together, where they meet, where they have a family reunion. And for me, walking in here, having been out of office for almost 10 years now, I'm standing in the hallway, and it's unbelievable, the number of people that come up and remember the things that we did for years. What fun is that? And I think this place is about fun. It's about tourism, Ed, thank you. And, people coming together to talk, but just experience this place together. The years that I was governor were really a great ride. And I hit 6 years when North Dakota really surged. Poor Doug Burgum, he came into office after me, and I said, Doug, congratulations. Just so you know, you're starting out with the state pretty much #1 in everything. But I did tell him the importance of sustaining, the position that we have, and he did a pretty darn good job of that, and in many new areas made a great leap forward. Energy, okay, I'll take one out of that long list you gave me. The energy story in North Dakota is so interesting because I remember, I'm so old, I remember when the first energy crisis came along, long, long ago, and Richard Nixon asked the nation to not turn on any Christmas lights to save power that year. And a few years later, we had another wave of energy crisis, and Jimmy Carter said, the answer to the problem is conservation. Just use less electricity this year than you used last year. And I'm thinking, where does this go? And yet for years, that was talked about as a viable approach. Just don't want so much energy. But eventually, people began to realize that that was not the solution. And we started getting calls for energy policy nationally. we need more energy policy. We don't have an energy policy. And everybody was getting all tensed out about it and who had the best energy policy. Finally, I remember this great quote by Governor Haley Barbour of Mississippi. He said, in his drawl, he said, "I got an energy policy, is more energy." And it was kind of like from then on, everybody started to realize, yeah, we have to develop all our sources. And one of the first guys to coin the term was John Hoeven. All of the above. We're not for one kind of energy over another. We need it all. We need a lot of it. And we're not going to even talk favorably about one over the other. And now we finally, John, it's taken a long time, but we finally reached a point where I feel like we are kind of at that place where people understand it. And the policies that we have, they're not really policies, it's just an attitude going forward, is so valuable. But I got to just tell my little story about oil and gas development, because I really hit the surge. And it was wild and woolly, believe me. That was a true oil boom. No fooling around. And I learned about it on a cocktail napkin in the bistro bar one night, long ago. And there was a guy there that night by the name of Lauren Kopsing, and he drew a picture of the Bakken seam. And he said, "Jack, you got to understand, it's right there. But every time you drill into it, it crumbles and clogs, and you can't get it out." He said, "But we've got the secret." Then he drew a little line underneath the seam, and he said, "This is another layer." And they went up to the University of North Dakota to the core library, and they took a look at the cores, and they realized that they could probably drill into the layer underneath. And then if they did a good enough job of fracking or cracking the seams, the oil in the Bakken would drip down into the other layer. So you see, that moment was actually probably the beginning of the great boom in the nation. No more take spare gas cans with you in the back of your car when you went to Minneapolis. All of a sudden, we go from being a non-contender to being the largest producer of oil and gas in the world. And John Hoeven got in on a lot of that fun, but when it got really complicated and difficult, that was when I was around. And,
We've been out here for 3 days, and this place is just fantastic and a celebration to TR. And TR said that his time in the Badlands made him president. A century and a half later, we are opening the library in the town that helped form him as a person. Governor Schafer, what does this place, this library, owe North Dakota in return? And what does it have a responsibility to share with the rest of the country?
Thank you, Mr. Governor. Appreciate it. And I too would like to introduce family, if I may. I have son Tom somewhere and son Eric over here. I don't see Tom. Well, maybe he hasn't heard me enough. So, we have grandson Trey and great-grandson Jasper here too, all of whom have Medora running through their veins. So we're glad to be here. Thank you. You know, I was thinking, some of you know the story, in 1952, when I was 6 years old, you can do the math, I stood on the top of the bluff looking over Medora, and my dad said, "There's too much here to be lost." And it wasn't like, "Oh, I'm going to go build this place and do this." It was kind of a melancholy about that independent way of life, the cowboys on the prairie, the honor and work that you get on the prairie, how it shapes the character and individual values of people. And that's what he was kind of concerned with, is disappearing, because this was a place that really had the opportunity to generate those things in other people. You know, Theodore Roosevelt talked often about how life in the Badlands was transformative. That changed. And certainly those of us who had the privilege of living and working here know that to be true. He came to Medora having breathed the air his whole life of wealth and privilege and racial hierarchy and opportunity that other people didn't have. And that's his life, and that's what he grew up with. He came to the Badlands, and here it was where he breathed the air of independence and hard work and challenge and opportunity. And it changed him. It absolutely changed him. I contemplate the mid-century, mid-20th century book, the Negro Traveler's Green Book. It was a publication that said to travelers, these are safe places and good places and welcoming places for Black American travelers. The Rough Riders Hotel in Medora, North Dakota was listed in that book. And I think it was an echo of what Theodore Roosevelt learned here. Here on the prairie, he worked with cowboys and drifters. He hunted with Métis. His neighbors were Lakota and Mandan. He watched women ownership and operations of ranches and boarding houses and saloons. And he rode with black cowboys and buffalo soldiers. And that helped him discover the human being away from his growth and his pattern. He learned the human being, and when he left here, he was a different...
This is a test of the TRPLP system. This is a test.
It's working.
Did I pass? Anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is when he left, when he left Medora, he knew he had in his soul the courage and the honor and the dignity of the individual human being. And that, as he went to ascend to the presidency, he invited Indian chiefs to participate in his inaugural festivities. He invited Booker T. Washington to dine in the White House, the first black man ever to be a guest in the White House. And it wasn't perfect, but it's an example of the shift that took place in him with the way he grew up and what he learned here in the Badlands. And I think that is one of the most important messages that we need to carry from this place. Robbie Loft talks about this Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library isn't to come to learn about Theodore Roosevelt, it's to learn from Theodore Roosevelt. And I just pray that this library will continue to inspire, to encourage, to lift people up, to learn from the lessons that Theodore Roosevelt learned right here in Medora.
So we have about 20 minutes left. That means there's 4 people up here that get to talk. You each get 5 minutes, and I'm excited about this. I'm holding you all to it. I've been excited to control time on you guys for a while. Former state party chair, state senator, I have worked with these guys my entire adult political life, and I am significantly better for it. But we're going to do, I think the thing about the library, the thing about what we're celebrating today is there's history behind it. I always tell people that 75% of the people that sit in my chair would make the exact same decision 75% of the time. 85% of the Republican governors would make the exact same decision I make 85% of the time. It's the 15% at the time and place where you had the privilege of serving as governor, where you all get to make your mark and have a life of consequence. And each of you had different times in North Dakota history, different times with the history of the Badlands, with the state, ag, energy, all of that. So, and I'm going to work from where we are today all the way back to the beginning. So what is your favorite part about your time as governor, and what did you appreciate the most that you brought to that office at the period of time in which you were doing it, Governor Burgum? You guys have to brag about yourself a little bit because you're all awesome.
That would take longer than 20 minutes to cover all the things we did. But I am going to use part of my 5 minutes to say that I got my friend Jack here, who's from Castleton. Arthur's 15 miles away. I grew up. They have billboards. They have Governor's Park. They have 5 governors from Castleton. I mean, it is like on and on and on about. It's like if you're from Castleton, it's like you wake up and then just I'm going to be the governor someday. It's like that's going to happen.
Don't get any ideas, Michael Howe.
Yeah, so it was. So people said, "Why'd you run for governor?" And it's like because everybody in Arthur said we want to have a sign by our town that says we have at least one governor on Highway 18. So it's been, but Jack and Betsy have been amazing to Catherine and I. Catherine, the First Lady, is here, did a fabulous job when she was governor. We were so honored to serve as the 33rd governor and First Lady of North Dakota. It was really special. I would say that one thing that did come during that time in office, including some of the people that are in the room, Jay Spieler, Robbie Loff, we had a number of folks were there when this idea of how do we take the idea of a Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library and how do we upscale it? And I think that there is a lesson there for all of North Dakota, because there will be a book written not about TR, there'll be a book written about how the library came to be. And this whole thing was like TR. It was bold, it was audacious, it was impossible. It was like the idea of, at the time when we started, we didn't have an architect, we didn't have land, which we needed an act of Congress to get these 93 acres. We didn't have a budget. We didn't have anything, but we had one thing going. We had a release date, which was July 4th, 2026. We knew that we wanted to have a library open on that day, and here we are. We also knew that we had an opportunity to not just look in the past, but have a place where people could come and be inspired about how they could play a role in citizenship, leadership, in conservation, how they could be in the arena, not be a critic on the side, but how they could make a difference. And it was meant to be interactive. And we said, how can we make this a place where, I think Ed O'Keefe was the first one to say it, we want a place where people will bring their kids, and the kids and grandkids will drag their parents and grandparents, as opposed to parents, dragging their kids to a presidential library. Most presidential libraries is a lot of objects under glass. We've got some spectacular objects here that help tell that story, historic kind of Mona Lisa quality things that we had to pry out of the hands of the federal government, which got easier, by the way. I got a lot of no's when I was governor, but I got in a new role and people started saying yes. It was weird when you're asking the Park Service to give up valuable objects.
I have the opposite experience. People told me no all the time as a congressman. It's a lot easier as governor.
But here we are. But I would say to this day, as we celebrate the opening, I mean, for everybody here, it's to say this is a milestone. It's not a finish line. It's a starting line. And the starting line for North Dakota and all the supporters and all the donors that here. I mean, we have an opportunity to build a lasting cultural institution. This is all private sector dollars that have gone into this thing. We had a great challenge grant from the state of North Dakota. That money still sits at the state land board, which Kelly oversees right now. It still sits there. So everything you see here, every salary that was paid, every construction bill was paid by the private sector. This was a big dream, and people said it couldn't be done, and they said it couldn't be done at a scale that was 1/30th of the size that we ended up with the vision. So sometimes for North Dakota, we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe, like Theodore Roosevelt did, that we can do big things, that we can build great institutions, that we can drive the policy for the nation on ag, on energy. We're literally doing it right now. This administration is following the path laid that North Dakota showed on how we could become the highest GDP state with some of the lowest taxes, smartest regulations, cleanest air, cleanest water, best soil health. We were doing it all right here. There aren't false trade-offs. You can be a country that has energy abundance and has low energy prices and takes care of the environment. It's not a trade-off. We can do all of that. We're doing it here in North Dakota and doing it because of the gentlemen on the stage helped pave the way to make that happen. And everybody on the stage and everybody in this audience had a hand in helping this institution come to life. But remember, let's celebrate this incredible beginning, this incredible milestone, but let's all recommit ourselves to how great we can make this and how we can continue to increase the impact of North Dakota on the nation and the world.
And I'm going to say this because I think it doesn't get said enough. And this place as it exists and what we are in today doesn't happen without Governor Burgum. Jack, you said earlier, just about 10 years out of public office. When you look back, what do you miss? What are you the most proud of? Like, what do you remember the most fondly about your time and the job of being governor of this great state?
Sure. Just before I dive into that, though, one little follow-up on how this place, came to be. And it is absolutely magnificent, but it's also miraculous. And if somebody from out of North Dakota says, how'd you do that? I would need a lot of time to explain it. But you start with...
You got 4 minutes.
You start with the governor, Schafer, who was, his family was like, the definition of tourism in North Dakota. He creates a place that at least a lot of people are aware of, and people can see the potential of it. Governor Hoeven comes along and says, yeah, we ought to do that, and let's start working on that, and maybe can we get some federal land, or maybe could we get some big donors, or, how can we put this together? And then I, kind of followed along and said, yeah, great idea, let's see what we can do. But one day, Doug Burgum, before you were governor, stood up and stuck his neck out and said, this presidential library idea is going to happen. And everybody was kind of, yeah, right, chuckling and making little comments as they can do in the halls of the legislature. But, all of a sudden I'm saying to people, you don't know Doug Burgum that well, do you? And I said, I know him pretty well. And this guy creates software companies out of thin air and stuff like that. And I said, when Doug Burgum tells you he's going to achieve something, you better not bet against him. And that's what I said then, and you've made me right. You've made me right. Thank you. And thank you from all of us for what you did. Oh, okay, my time in the office, I look back and I'm proudest of the way that I understood bipartisanship and working for solutions to problems with more than just one party. And I had an advantage there. I was a legislator for 16 years. My wife Betsy actually agreed to come to Bismarck with me when we were very young. We put our children in the Bismarck public school system. Didn't hurt them a bit. And we actually had a great time with it. But I became the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. In the Schafer years, there was a very simple thing. Ed proposed no spending, and then I followed through with his proposal. And we were actually very proud at the end of the day to say that we had not allowed taxes to go up or spending to increase. And, these days, it's pretty tough to do that. But we were able to do that.
It's tough to do that, too.
And Ed deserves good credit for that. But then when John came along, I was sort of the accidental lieutenant governor. I went to the convention, and I actually supported Gary Nelson, my neighbor at Castleton. You got to give me credit for not wanting to bury that, though, Could have just done away with that. But there was a need for a running mate at that convention, and it was getting late on a Sunday morning, and there was a lot of people had the opportunity, but nobody was dumb enough to go for it. And finally, I turned to Betsy and I said, "Oh, what the heck? What else we got to do?" And she said, "Yeah, why not?" And that was the real decision right there. And becoming the lieutenant governor with Governor Hoeven was probably the best bet I ever made in my life. I thought I saw success ahead with him, and he turned out to be a great executive branch individual. And so here I am, 16 years in the legislature, looking at the governor's office as nothing but the enemy. And then suddenly I'm in the governor's office, and I've got to talk to legislators like Kelly about what ought to happen. And everybody, really does not understand that there's a tremendous advantage in having a relationship and knowing the people that are involved. And so if I wanted to talk to somebody about joining us and solving a problem, they would talk to me. And that was a real advantage. Since then, I've been asked to go places and speak on bipartisanship. But what's happened is really a tragedy, and is probably, as the last panel pointed out, Kevin Cramer, Senator Cramer included, maybe the biggest problem facing our nation right now. So that was the highlight for me. We were able to do a lot of things on a bipartisan basis.
I'm just letting the timer up top know I'm taking a minute back. Thank you. Governor Hoeven, as somebody who's in D.C. now, and I'm sure misses North Dakota every day, what do you remember most? What are you most excited about?
Well, first off, serving as governor, any elective office is an incredible honor, and you appreciate the great people in North Dakota for giving all of us that opportunity. But I think you could ask every one of the governors, and we've all been in different roles as well, whether it's in the Senate or secretary, but hands down, the best possible job is being governor. And I ask all of the senators who were former governors, and they say the same thing. And a lot of it is being able to set the agenda, to create initiatives, and then follow through. And I think that's one of the biggest and best things about it, which I'm going to touch on, but I also want to touch on that I've had the opportunity, and still have the opportunity, to have worked or am still working with every one of these individuals on stage in so many capacities. I was president of the Bank of North Dakota, of course, when you were chairman of the Bank of North Dakota, and as Jack said, he was in the legislature, and it was always fun, as president of the Bank of North Dakota, to go talk to the legislators and hear what they said about the governor, and then go talk to the governor and hear what they said about the legislators. With Dorso and Nelson and those, it was fun. And they didn't pull any punches either way. But that's the beauty of our government, the checks and the balances. And we had Vanderwall at the Supreme Court. And I really got to see right there that we have great people in government, and they work hard and they serve the people of North Dakota very well. And of course, then working with Doug, I actually was at the Bank of North Dakota, and I was asking about a loan that we had on the books to a company called Great Plains Software. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" Wells Fargo was the lead, and then we're the participating bank, and so, when thing tanks, we're the ones that get it in the neck, that's kind of how it works with Bank of North Dakota. And we had this great thing, they said, it's all right. If it goes down, we got this great thing as collateral. I said, "Oh, what's that? Is that farmland or, what kind of," it's software. Software. And I'm going, what the hell is that? So we go over to Fargo, and we go into this, it was like a shopping center area that he was renting, and he's sitting in his office, and people are putting these floppy disks in little boxes, and they're packing those little boxes in cartons. And he's explaining software to me, and on, and of course, fine. And we walk out of there, and I said, If this thing goes down, we're screwed.
It didn't.
But it kind of, as you know, it kind of worked out. And, and with Kelly, he was chair of the party, worked with him in Congress now. As every one of these guys, working with him is such a great experience. And so as I worked on initiatives, both as governor, you know, when I started as governor, we were producing less than 100,000 barrels a day, and there wasn't one drop coming out of shale. And you're right, guys like Lauren Kopsinger were saying, oh, it's there, it's there. And I'd heard a lot from Lauren, so I'm thinking, well, maybe it's there, you know? But he was dead right. And whether it was that or all the amazing things, advancements in agriculture, or how about making Grand Forks the drone capital of the world? You know, how's that show? I mean, pretty good show? Well, we are the drone and counter-drone capital of the world, and it's an overnight success. We only started 20 years ago in 2005. But that's how it works, hard work. And these guys work hard. They're great people, great families, and they all recognize that it takes a team. It takes a team to get things done. And the things we started working on as governor, we're still working on today, and we're making them bigger and better. Look at all the things that Ed Schafer did and his whole family from Medora, and now look at what Doug Burgum is doing. It's crazy. And we all got a little piece of it, passing the law to get, that was my bill, along with my great partner, Mr. Kramer right here in the front row. Senator Kramer was a co-sponsor in the bill. But all those things, those initiatives are so fantastic because we're working for the greatest people anywhere in the world, the people of North Dakota.
Us as Republicans, I think we take for granted Republican and conservative leadership in North Dakota. That wasn't always the case. 1992, very different state, very different political makeup. Along comes a guy named Ed Schafer. Changes the trajectory of how leadership is done in this state. You kind of started it all for each and every one of us. What do you remember the most fondly? What are you the most proud of? You got extra time.
I'll try to give a short answer. but you know, there are many things. One, I think when we started, obviously, the state was in a pretty tough condition. The economics were awful. Energy and agriculture, our top two performers, were both in the tank. Government was cutting back. We didn't have enough money to pay our bills. Things were pretty bad, and the state had been run that way for 40 years. And it was a difficult time. And so we came in and said, we want to change. You know, we want to look at a new way to do it. And a lot of it was people were in the doldrums. People were their kids were leaving the state. They didn't have jobs or careers. Things were, you know, just kind of really disruptive in people's lives. And we came in and said, our campaign was Schafer Means Business. And that meant a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But one of the things it meant is, you know, if we want to generate North Dakotans' future, it's not government that's going to drive the economy. It's business that's going to drive the economy. And we need to move government out of the way and get opportunities for business investment, for jobs, for careers, for our kids and our families, and make that work. And so it was fun because we didn't have any money. And Jack was talking about the fact, well, you know, we just said no spending. But what we were able to do is we were able to generate that economy through business investment by lowering taxes, by removing regulations, and the economy started to go. At the same time, we cut the cost of government, lowered the cost of government for the first time in North Dakota. So we had a lesser cost government. We put more money into education and safety and health of our people, and we drove that economy going forward. And we're still enjoying the results of that today. One of the opportunities and examples I give, because we're talking about energy, is, you know, in 1997, we came in and said, let's do a 2-year tax holiday on a horizontal well that's drilled in a vertical dry well. So you didn't have to have a new pad, you didn't have to do utilities, you were able to go in and do it. And, you know, that people was like, oh, that's pretty interesting, economic incentive. And lowering the taxes caused leasing, equipment to move, opportunities, and we said, oh my gosh, this is going to go. And that is an example of many things we did to spur the economy. And I'm most proud of that. The second piece is when I was campaigning the first time, a farmer from Zeeland, North Dakota, started poking me in the chest, literally. And he said, you know, I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican, and I think you're going to win. But he said, I want you to know, when you get there, you're going to represent me too. And you know, that led to opportunity the first tenet in our office was to serve all the people all the time. And we were able to really bring North Dakota out of the doldrums and into a fun, exciting, happy, moving forward place, because we put people in the equation, not government. And I think that's a lesson from Theodore Roosevelt. He came out here, he interacted with the people, he learned, that's what we did in the governor's office. We interacted with the people. Kevin was out there all the time, you know, trying to gin up people, and we're going, we don't have any money, but we're going to cut spending, and by the way, we're cutting taxes, and people supported it because they had belief and hope in the future, and I think we generated that. The most important thing for me personally, 8 years after being in office, our scheduler, who is the toughest job in the administration, our scheduler came in and said, I worked for 4 different governors. You're the only one who's the same person coming in as you were leaving. And that was a win.
That's a great answer. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us up here today, but most importantly, thank you what each and every one of you have done for the state of North Dakota, and you all have a special part of history of what we all believe is the greatest state and the greatest country in the history of the world. So thank you all very, very much.